The issue that I'd like to discuss in my video journal assignment is education in Texas. As of February 2019, the biggest problem facing kinder through 12th grade public education is low teacher pay, public school system funding, public education financing, unequal resources among schools, and school accountability. Regarding teacher pay in Texas, the annual salary for a teacher in Texas is roughly $57,545. The pay varies based on the city they work in and other factors such as education, certifications, additional skills, and how many years they have spent in their profession. Texas is ranked number 23 out of the 50 states on teacher pay. Cities such as Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso, San Antonio, and High Texas have the highest paying salaries of $24 to $33 per hour. So you may be wondering, how do we fix this issue? Some ways that we can fix this issue of the low pay for teachers is by increasing their annual salary. Teachers who have worked for 5+ years are receiving a $5,200 pay raise, where those who have worked up to 5 years receive $3,800 regardless of the zip code. Governor Greg Abbott is currently working on this bill for the 2019 to 2020 year. Many teachers have more than 2 jobs in order to meet their financial needs and don't have the time to focus on students outside of the classroom. With the pay increase, they will be able to perform their job better. Of course, many may argue that they don't feel this is necessary to give our teachers more money to do their job better, when in fact, a higher paying job for teachers means students will perform better within the classroom and their schoolwork. It allows teachers to help with student learning and focus the majority of their time on helping in and out of the classroom. On to the next topic regarding public school funding. Public school funding comes from the local school district property taxes, state funds, and federal funds. The amount of funding that communities can provide to their schools vary accordingly to their community affluence. Wealthier communities typically have better school funding, whereas low-income communities have poor quality school funding and typically rely on the state for funding. To fix this issue, reducing reliance on local property taxes to fund education, target extra funding to help low-income children, and fix funding gaps for individual schools within the districts. Why would I want to increase the basic per-student funding for all districts? Well, the increase of public school funding would fund early childhood literacy, relocating money for the other groups such as the Gifted and Talented, or GT program, high schools, and tie transportation funding to mileage. Texas was recently ranked 45th in the U.S. in reading literacy on the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Moving on to the next topic regarding public education funding. Just like public school funding, public education funding comes from local property taxes collected by school districts and state funding. A fun fact, San Antonio districts have about the same funding per student at a much different tax rate. For example, Alamo Heights ISD is at $6.5 billion in property value, but has a tax rate of $1.06, whereas Edgewood ISD has a property value of $1.2 billion and has a tax rate of $1.17. Edgewood has less valuable property, and it's taxed at the maximum rate and depends on the state for help with this budget. Yet Alamo Heights is a wealthier area and has a lower tax rate and must send money back to the state. 59% of Texas public schools are economically disadvantaged. The total enrollment continues to rise, as well as the demand for special programs and compensatory educational funding. Moving on to the last topic regarding unequal resources among schools, low-income students and those who don't speak English are the fastest growing groups in Texas public schools that have unsuitable educational resources. Better funded schools are more likely to attract teachers with higher levels of education, more experience, and higher scores on competence tests. Students from disadvantaged families will suffer more from the unequal schools funding because they attend poorly funded public schools. While doing further research on my topic, I found a court case between San Antonio Independent School District versus Rodriguez. On July 10th of 1968, Rodriguez and 7 other Edgewood parents filed on behalf of Texas school children who were poor or resided in school districts with low property tax bases. His argument rested upon two major claims that no federal court had accepted. The first was that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution made education a fundamental right, and the second was that poor and Mexican-American families were treated as a suspect class. On March 21, 1973, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 against Rodriguez, stating that the system of school finance did not violate the federal Constitution and that the issues should be resolved by the state of Texas. After hearing all of this, I'm sure you're wondering why this topic is even important. Education is so important to our upbringing, especially grades kinder through 12th grade, so it's important to fully fund our teachers with the necessary resources they need to provide that quality education. With a better education means more job opportunities and advantages. It breaks my heart knowing teachers are not being provided the salary they deserve and do a lot of things out of pocket for their students. Overall, after doing my research, the main solution is to give teachers the necessary raise and increase the per-student funding, as well as saving the extra funds to reserve them for specific programs, not just funding the sports teams and fancy football stadiums like Texas has been known to have.